Damas y caballeros,
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We shall start the second day corresponding to the Binational Forum 100 Years American Naval Mission to Peru. Now, words by Rear Admiral Gerardo Indacoche Arana, Director of the Peruvian Naval Academy.
buenos días.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, participants of the forum of the 100th year of the American Naval Mission to Peru. Me, as director of the Peruvian Naval Academy, it's a pleasure to introduce the conference given by U.S. Navy Vice Admiral John Spack, Superintendent of the U.S. Naval Academy, on 5 aspects to form efficient leaders. But first, I would like to mention some issues regarding the great link between the American Naval Academy and the Peruvian Naval Academy. Since the government of President Augusto Beleguía made the amazing decision to have a American naval mission to help us to organize and modernize the Peruvian Navy, a close relationship emerged between both Navy and an influence that can be observed to this day through changes in the provisions and regulations, as well as in the institutional culture, which resulted in a notable improvement in our logistic, health, administrative, operational, and disciplinary processes. But these changes would not have been continuity over time if they were not instilled from the Naval School, where future officers of the Peruvian Navy are trained, who, with their leadership, will be able to take on the new challenge and achieve the objective to adapt the institution to this new structure. In this sense, it is fair to highlight the role played by Captain Charles Gordon Davy, who was one of the members of the first American naval missions, who was in charge of the directorate of our Naval Academy throughout 10 fruitful years. During this period, very important and amazing changes were carried out at the Naval Academy, such as the reformulation of regulations with practical and modern criteria, adaptation of the study plan to new technologies, and realization of sea trainings in order to complement the theory classes. Likewise, disciplinary training was emphasized and sports acquired great importance. There are amazing traditions that was set by Captain Charles Gordon Day at the Peruvian Navy Academy, like daily routine, cadets' daily routine, daily honors to the flag, daily inspection of cabins and personal presentation of cadets, the swearing of the cadets in their first years when they undertake to comply with the provisions and regulations in force, as well as to serve the country. In the social-cultural area, the creation of the company Cangrejo Follies, in charge of holding the Mother's Day and annual evenings, the realization of the annual cadet party, on-board instruction periods in the first 3 months of the year, known as summer cruises, a special award, sort of honor, to the cadet who graduates occupying the first position of his class, among others. Another very important issue in this centuries-old relationship is the successful scholarships program, so that outstanding cadets from the Peruvian Naval Academy can continue their training stage as the prestigious United States Naval Academy. The first graduate was Rear Admiral Alberto Jiménez de Lucio in 1946. To date, we have 45 graduated officers, 44 male and 1 female, among which we can mention the Vice Admirals Macias, Mariscal, Bansten, Sarikei, and the current General Director of Education of the Navy, Vice Admiral Luis Polar. Within the same program, we currently have 3 naval cadets studying at the United States Naval Academy, in addition to the annual participation of Peruvian naval cadets in the Science and Technology and Leadership Conference, where the cadets have the opportunity to receive and share knowledge and experience with U.S. naval cadets and cadets from all different nationalities. Also, in this very fruitful relationship, we have had the opportunity to have distinguished officers of the Peruvian Navy who have integrated the teaching staff of the U.S. Naval School, such as Vice Admiral Mauro Cacho and Frigate Captain Jorge Ortiz. Now, I want to give the word to Vice Admiral Sean Book, Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, who will give us today the lecture. And I want to thank you for his participation. Thank you.
Buenos dias, Admiral Sudan, Charge Offutt, fellow flag officers, diplomats, naval officers, midshipmen, and everyone attending the virtual forum today. Thank you for inviting me to speak as the representative of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Thank you, Rear Admiral Indacochea, for the introduction. I look forward to working together to bring greater partnership between our academies and our navies. I wish I could be joining you all today in person in Peru. During my previous tour as commander of the United States Navy's 4th Fleet, I visited Peru many times and even visited your naval school on 6 different occasions. My one regret is that I never was able to go underway on board the tall ship Union with your midshipmen. Though I did have the pleasure of visiting her several times, she's truly a magnificent sailing vessel, and I'm envious of the training opportunity that it provides your future naval officers. Through the time I spent in Peru, working alongside your Navy, I developed a deep affection for the Peruvian people and your country and your culture. I also developed a tremendous respect for your capabilities as a Navy during my time operating in the 4th Fleet. It was a pleasure working with your former Commander General of the Navy, Admiral Rios, throughout my tenure. One of the defining moments of my tour in the region was the 2018 UNITAS multilateral exercise hosted in Lima, Peru, in which we trained alongside the navies of 20 partner nations. Vice Admiral Alberto Tito Acla was my direct partner in planning and executing that exercise, and truly the linchpin of its success. It was also a tremendous opportunity to work alongside your current Commander General of the Navy, Admiral Fernando Cerdan, when he was the Commander General of the Pacific Forces. I am thrilled that my new role as superintendent allows me to continue to build relationships with your country and fellow partners in the Southern Hemisphere. One of the highlights of my first year as superintendent was hosting the inaugural Inter-American Naval Conference for Superintendents here in Annapolis, Maryland. We welcomed Rear Admiral Roberto Jimenez Torreblanca to Annapolis to represent your naval school. During the conference, Rear Admiral Torreblanca and I were able to collaborate and share best practices for developing military leaders with our fellow heads of naval and military schools from 11 nations from North and South America. We discussed many of the themes I'm going to talk about today in my remarks. I'm truly looking forward to our next conference in 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the enduring friendships I built during my time working alongside the Peruvian Navy is with your current Chief of Naval Education, Vice Admiral Luis Pilar, who I know is participating today. Luis, greetings. We share a common bond, as you know. We are both United States Naval Academy graduates, which allowed us to connect instantly. I relied on his counsel during my time at Fourth Fleet. And now, as head of our own Naval Academy, I appreciate his wisdom from his time as director of your naval school. I believe our friendship and the strength of our professional relationship as senior members of our own naval services is a true testament to the power of our inter-service academy cultural exchanges and immersion programs to build lasting relationships and partnerships between nations. Vice Admiral Pilar is part of a long legacy of educational exchange between our service academies. At our event today, we are celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the U.S. Naval mission in Peru. It was not that long after Captain Charles Gordon Davy traveled to Peru and helped modernize your naval school that we welcomed Peruvian midshipmen to the U.S. Naval Academy to pursue a 4-year course of study. As was mentioned, since 1946, we have had 48 Peruvian exchange midshipmen graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy. As we speak, we have 3 of them here, 3 Peruvian midshipmen completing a 4-year course of study at the U.S. Naval Academy, who are truly a part of our Naval Academy family here in Annapolis. Each year, we welcome midshipmen from your naval school to Annapolis to participate in various educational conferences as well, such as the Foreign Affairs and Leadership Conferences. Your delegates always provide valuable insight and diverse perspectives to our conferences, and we are thankful for their participation each year. I'd love to see more of these exchange programs begin on my watch as superintendent. Due to the legacy of the U.S. Naval mission to Peru that we are here today to commemorate, the subsequent enduring partnership it created, our naval academies are built upon foundations of similar values. This system of shared values lends itself well to partnerships between our navies, in particular in the development of future leaders for our prospective nations. As a result, what I wanted to talk to you all about with today is some of my observations of leadership development at the U.S. Naval Academy, which I believe have equal application to your Navy. When I first reported to Annapolis last July to assume the role of superintendent, I spent several months carefully observing everything that was going on around the yard, which is the nickname for our campus, and taking the time to meet everyone who works, lives, and attends school here. I had not been stationed at the Naval Academy since I was a midshipman 36 years prior, and I needed to take the time to understand what was different and what was the same. As I was listening and observing, I noted 5 distinct cultures present on the yard that I believe make the Naval Academy special, but also serve as the foundation upon which all of our leadership development is built. My goal as superintendent, therefore, is to create the conditions which continue to cultivate and grow these cultures so that they become forged in the very being and character of our Naval Academy graduates for life. Given the unique shared heritage and missions of our respective institutions, as well as my time visiting you in La Punta Callao, I know these cultures also exist at your naval school and can be leveraged to create leaders who will serve your country well for a lifetime. The 5 cultures I observed are a culture of character, a culture of learning, a culture of fitness, a culture of accountability, and a culture of winning. I will talk a little bit about each of these and why they're important cultures for developing naval officers. The first culture, as I mentioned, is a culture of character. The common refrain we hear is that the true test of character is doing the right thing when no one is watching. As all of us in uniform know, in the naval service, this is much more than a truism. It can mean the difference between life and death, whether that's during a pre-flight inspection, a routine maintenance action, or a gear check prior to a patrol. We must teach our midshipmen to have the integrity and the character to admit when they're wrong or not up to standard. We must also teach them to balance a can-do attitude with an honest assessment of their capabilities as an individual and as a team. This self-awareness will not only allow them to grow and improve, but also ensure they never allow their ego or their desire to get the mission done unnecessarily risk the safety of their people or the success of the mission. As you all know, this is incredibly important and incredibly hard to do. Character development is the most important thing we do at our schools. It's foundational to everything else. I also believe that, like learning calculus or improving your mile run time, character development takes practice. In the same way we do repetitions in the weight room, we need to practice developing our character through experience. Reading and discussing ethics and leadership is important, but it can only get us so far. We need our midshipmen to have practice with making tough decisions, owning up to failure, and learning how to bounce back from it. Recently at the U.S. Naval Academy, we've put a lot of emphasis on experiential leadership development. We're investing more time and resources into giving the midshipmen practical leadership experience under trying circumstances so that they can learn by doing and also learn from mistakes and failures when the stakes are lower than they are in the fleet. For us, these leadership experiences include outdoor expeditions in demanding environments, summer cruises on our yard patrol craft and sailing vessels, and traditional leadership roles within the brigade of midshipmen. We also have revamped how we approach leadership development in our more traditional summer training opportunities through the help of our Center for Experiential Leadership and Development. We're much more intentional with our leadership training during programs such as yard patrol and sailing training. We use proven leadership best practices to first teach midshipmen about leadership and have them plan for their leadership challenges. We then send them off on these practical leadership experiences, and when they return, we ask them to complete the process of reflecting on their leadership experience and developing ways to improve in the future. This is a cycle that we need midshipmen to learn here of planning, practice, and reflection so they can continue to intentionally develop their leadership skills as they advance in the fleet. The second culture I'd like to dive into is a culture of learning. Our midshipmen today are commissioning into an incredibly complex world. Great power war is no longer unthinkable in today's environment, and our adversaries are gaining on us daily. We must be able to outthink and out-innovate our enemies. We must also be prepared to confront our enemies in new domains such as cyber. In order to develop naval officers ready to confront these challenges in the fleet, we must build a solid intellectual foundation for them at the academy. We must graduate ensigns and second lieutenants who are able to adapt and learn without hesitation. One of the ways we've been done is by evolving our curriculum. We've built a cyber science department and added 2 cyber courses to our core curriculum so that every midshipman who graduates understands how their warfare specialty intersects with a cyber domain, a critical competency for warfighters today. We also realize that our allies and our partners around the world are more important than ever. As I like to remind our midshipmen, the U.S. will never preserve peace nor go to war alone again. Everything that we will be doing is as a coalition with our allies and our partners. We need our midshipmen, no matter what their background is, to feel comfortable operating across cultural boundaries with partner forces, such as the Peruvian Navy. They also need to understand how our adversaries think and operate. In order to do this, we're working on creating a new regional studies major that includes history, language, and politics of various regions of the world. Additionally, in the last 10 years, we've greatly expanded our opportunities for cultural exchange and immersion programs. Our goal is to have 500 midshipmen a year travel abroad for either language and cultural immersion programs or foreign exchange cruises with partner nations, such that approximately 1/2 of every graduating class benefits from these valuable experiences. My own major at the Naval Academy was oceanography, and my fleet trade was a naval flight officer. However, my career as a flag officer has led me to work with partner forces in the Western Pacific, in the Middle East, and South and Central America. In order to be successful in the second half of my career, I had to learn an incredible amount about international affairs through both formal study in graduate school, as well as on-the-job training. I fully believe that the cross-cultural competency is one of the most important tools that we can give our graduates. Imbuing midshipmen now with the ability to learn languages and study other cultures will help them in their careers to embrace security challenges with an open mind and critical thinking. In this vein, I'm excited to continue to look for ways to expand our cultural, academic, and military exchanges between our 2 schools. The third culture is a culture of fitness. Graduates from our naval academies must be tough and full of grit to do the jobs expected of them after graduation. They will go on to face long days and harsh conditions in the fleet. All of us old guys know that. They must be tough and resilient, both physically and mentally, to be able to lead through their sailors and their Marines from the front. Physical fitness naturally lends itself to developing stamina, resilience, and grit. Throughout my 41 years in uniform, I've relied upon tennis, my preferred athletic activity, to provide me with both physical endurance, but also a mental and emotional outlet. In times of stress, tennis has been an incredibly healthy activity for my mental health. This is one reason why we require every midshipman in Annapolis to participate in a sport or a physical activity. We carve out time each day following classes to allow for it. We're not only providing them with the tools to make them strong in body, but we also need them to remain strong in mind throughout their careers. We're ensuring that they learn to build healthy habits now to cope with future physical, mental, and emotional stress. The fourth culture is a culture of accountability. As officers in the armed forces, we must always take accountability for our actions. We must foster a culture that encourages us to step forward, own problems, lead and leverage opportunity, and hold transgressors accountable. By having the character and the integrity to hold ourselves and those around us accountable for our actions, we will maintain our Naval Academy's rightful place as one of our nation's premier institutions. That's what sets us apart from the rest. The culture of accountability must permeate everything that we do at our institutions. And it must be demonstrated as we as officers must demonstrate that we hold ourselves accountable so that the midshipmen who look up to us as well, we must hold the midshipmen accountable. We must teach them to hold their peers and their subordinates accountable. Like character, accountability takes practice, especially for the teenagers who show up to our institutions from a variety of backgrounds. We have to encourage accountability in their daily lives and habits, as well as in high-risk endeavors. Accountability can be practiced and ingrained from daily practices such as cleaning one's room, maintaining a sharp uniform, and correcting those around you who fail to make the standard. It should also be practiced in more dynamic environments when the stakes are high, if a member of your team does not carry their weight. Your naval school has an incredible resource with the Tall Ship Union to teach accountability and your team in an incredibly dynamic and fast-paced environment at sea. The fifth and last culture is a culture of winning. Today, we face myriad security challenges as a nation, from great power competition and terrorism to cyber warfare and global warming. For decades, the United States enjoyed dominant superiority in most every operating domain. Today, every domain is contested: air, land, sea, space, and cyberspace. To succeed, we must foster a competitive mindset to outthink, to outmaneuver, to outpartner, and to out-innovate revisionist powers, rogue regimes, terrorists, and other adversaries. The cultivation of a competitive military mindset needs to start as a midshipman. Each midshipman must seek academic challenge, compete relentlessly and respectfully on the field of play, and expect and demand victory in all that they do. While these five cultures exist already, I believe at our service academies, we must never grow complacent as leaders in cultivating them. As superintendent, I see it as my job to not only lead from the front and embrace these five cultures and stress their importance, but also to ensure we provide the opportunities to allow these cultures to flourish and become ingrained in each midshipman for the rest of their careers. By doing this, I can ensure we are sending the fleet ensigns and second lieutenants who are prepared to lead in an incredibly complex and dynamic environment. Thank you all very much for this opportunity to speak and for listening. And I stand prepared to accept any questions that you may have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We have a first question that is from four-year cadet Naval Yurki Urquiaga. He's asking you How how have you managed the integration process between male and female cadets as the U.S. Naval Academy? And what is your position in front of this as superintendent?
Great question. Thank you for that very important question. The United States Naval Academy began to integrate women into our brigade of midshipmen or into our student body in 1976. 4 years later, the first class of women graduated in 1980. I would be lying to you to tell you that it was an easy, seamless integration. It was very difficult back then to make that transition. But I'm proud to tell you today that women continue to be integrated at the U.S. Naval Academy in numbers much larger than a number of years ago. And the way that we have succeeded with this integration is to stress that no matter what your gender, your race, or your ethnicity is, we treat everyone with dignity and respect. And that is the foundation to a successful integration of men and women at a military academy. Thanks for that question.
We have another question from Captain Luis Lasso Luna from Commander and Staff course, training course. The question is, how does globalization influence and current constant change in humanity with several types of wars with modern technology, and what is its influence on the skills required by a leadershipman?
Captain, thank you for that question. That's a very sophisticated question and a complex question that we, in fact, are taking on here at the U.S. Naval Academy. Globalization brings us into more contact with many more cultures than we could have ever expected to come in contact with decades ago. That then requires our midshipmen to have cultural skill sets so that they can partner with friendly nations around the world, both economically, militarily, and just through friendships. But it also gives a midshipman the need to have the skill sets to appreciate the cultural differences of our adversaries. We will be a globally connected world forever moving forward, and we are constantly reviewing our curriculum to make sure that we're giving our midshipmen a very broad, well-rounded education that takes into consideration the impacts of globalization. Thanks again, Captain.
We have another question from Captain Nestor Zúñiga from Commander and Staff Training Course. Regarding the 5 cultural aspects to educate shipment leaders, are you adequating all this structure to the new students or to the new generation of students?
I believe I understand the question, Captain. We are not only expecting these 5 cultures to permeate our midshipmen that we're training and developing, but we also expect these 5 cultures to permeate our instructors and our senior leaders on the grounds of the Naval Academy. That is how we can have the confidence that we are leading and educating and mentoring by example. So yes, sir, we make sure that all of us at the U.S. Naval Academy are living and abiding by these cultures. I hope that answered your question, Captain.
Thank you so much, Admiral. We have another question from Captain Edison Sagaceta from Command and Staff Training Course. What are the challenge and common goals that this century pose to both navies that will allow us to strengthen and build bonds of respect regarding the educational system?
I think the challenges that both of our navies and our naval schools are experiencing this century, a century of high technology, is still the ability to serve, train, and operate together in person as often as we can. So today we're brought together through technology to have this conference. It's due to many reasons. It's due to our lack of ability to travel because of the global pandemic. It's also due to sometimes our inability to be able to free up our schedules to travel to each other's countries. But that can never be a substitute for learning together, training together, operating together, so that when the time comes that we're put together to defend the ideals of both of our nations, we do it very comfortably and from a position of experience. That will be the biggest challenge moving forward as we educate, train, and operate. That was a really good question, Captain. Thank you for bringing that up.
We have another question
from the Peruvian Academy. According to the new arena, global arena, what are the attitude that U.S. Navy will take to keep their leadership in the world?
The steps that the United States Navy will take, and in that case, the steps that the United States Naval Academy and training future officers will take to remain one of our world's leading navies, is to continue to stress education, to continue to build and nurture partnerships with friends around the world, and encourage dialogue between all of our friends, our allies, and our partners to make sure that it's not only the U.S. Navy having a reputation as being a leading Navy, but that all of our navies in concert, all of our navies as partners enjoy that same reputation. The United States Navy will continue to work to cooperate, to train, and to educate any of our partners and friends to the best of our ability so that we all grow together. Thank you to the cadet that asked that question. I appreciate it.
We have a last question coming from Dr. Carl Johan Vidal. Considering the difference in sizes of the U.S. Navy and the Peruvian Navy, in which measurement the new students need to adapt to the new challenges, but depend on the material resources they have?
Dr. Vita, thank you for the question. As I have said in public remarks in Lima before, no Navy is too small. No naval officer in any Navy is too insignificant. What every one of your cadets must remember is that in contributing to a team, in contributing to your Navy, they must always strive to be their very best. They need to continue to be hungry for education. They must just be very, very focused on training and learning to be experts in what your Navy asks them to do, to understand the equipment that they use and serve on, and to be willing to understand the cultures of your friends and your partners and be ready to be a good teammate. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Admiral, for your participation and for sharing your knowledge with us that definitely are going to be very useful for all the participants of this forum.
You're very welcome. Admiral Sardon, thank you very much for this opportunity. I miss you. I miss the Peruvian Navy and the Peruvian people, and I can't wait till we're brought together in person. Ciao.
Now, the words in charge of Captain Andaluz Echevarria, Director of the Naval War College. Ladies and gentlemen that are attending this meeting, my name is Admiral Jorge Andaluz, Director of the Naval War College. First of all, I would like to thank the participation of Admiral Shoshana Chatfield that has been very kind to be with us, and especially because she's going to talk about our war academies and what are the values that we share. As we heard yesterday, the relationship between the Naval War College and the U.S. Navy, and especially with the Naval War College, has more than 90 years. In 1 month, the Naval War College will be 90 years of founded. A moment when Admiral William Pye became its first director. Admiral Pye was a very recognized tactist, decorated with the honor with the Navy Cross for his performance on the General Staff of the Atlantic Fleet Commander in the First World War. He has several commands, including the Nevada battleship, and he was part in the Naval War College during 3 years. So this means Admiral Pye had all the skills not only to become the new head of the Naval War College, but also to create a new war college focused on teaching strategy and tactics. The years went by and the bonds were strengthened with the sending the officers to the Naval Command College. It's thus that the captain of frigate Armando Echandia was the first officer to follow studies in the Naval War College in 1956. Today, there have been 24 officers who attend the different study programs. Also, officers from the U.S. Navy come to Peru to follow courses in our academy. Right now, we have a frigate, a captain following the High Naval Command program. But this is not only a relationship between students. In the year 2015, the relationship between our two war academies was consolidated in signing a memorandum of understanding that enabled a concrete cooperation actions. So in 2015, we have the visit of Governor Howe as the occasion of the commemoration of the 85th anniversary. In March 2017, where we were honored to be chosen as a host of the 4th Naval War College Regional Alumni Symposium, working in conjunction together with Admiral Jeffrey Harley, President of the Naval War College, Thomas Mangold, Dean of International Programs, Julia Gage, Director of Alumni Parker Glaser, Karen Sealers, and during those 3 days, we received the visit of officers graduated from the region, having counted on the participation of Admiral Nirman Berman, Almirante Guillermo Vareda, Dr. Derek Reverend, William Murray, Phil Hound, and Isaac Carden. In September of that year, Commander Carlos Yupanqui returned the visit and was present at the U.S. War College, where he worked with his counterpart working in a memorandum. Also, during the visit, he gave an oil painting of the great Admiral Miguel Grau Seminary, the same that is right now decorating that gallery. The participation of prominent U.S. Naval College in the international symposium organized by the Academy is also noteworthy, and the professors can be mentioned as Milan Vego, Lawrence Cape, Mary Round, John Haddendorf, William Harting, Michael O'Hara, Lindsay Cohn, James Hickey, Alfred Turner, and Nina Collars. I would like to mention, make a special mention for Dr. William Bander. He's a friend, a great cooperator of our Peruvian Naval War College, who passed away last year. But we have the opportunity to know their personal and professional skills. Yesterday, David Coney participated as a lecturer during the opening of this event. And for that, we have the presence of her president, Admiral Shoshana Chatfield. Admiral Chatfield, good morning, and once again for being with us, and I give you the floor.
Good morning, and I would like to thank you for this invitation to speak here at to be your guest, to speak at the 100 years of the American naval mission to Peru. I want to acknowledge and recognize Admiral Fernando Cerdan, Admiral Guillermo Barrera, Vice Admiral Manuel Santiago Vascones, Vice Admiral James Thornberry, Vice Admiral Jorge Millones, Vice Admiral Luis Polar, Vice Admiral Sean Buck, who we just heard from, and thank you. It's always wonderful to hear from a very senior naval aviator in our U.S. Naval Forces and esteemed member of our flag mess. Rear Admiral Augusto Borges, Rear Admiral Rodolfo Sablich, Rear Admiral Jorge Andaluz, Rear Admiral Gerardo Inda Cochea, Dennison Offutt, and Colonel Dave Schilling. My warm greetings to you all, and thank you very much for participating today and for being here to commemorate this relationship. The title of my presentation today is Our Naval War Colleges, a future built on trust, shared values, and cooperation. I am so happy that we've been able to come together to celebrate this remarkable relationship that has endured and grown over the past 100 years. Now, I know this event was originally planned to take place face-to-face, not virtually. But I'm so thankful to the Peruvian Navy to, number one, keep the event on the schedule, and number two, demonstrate the adaptability and flexibility in this COVID-19 pandemic environment to build a way for us to come together. When I received my invitation back in January, I was very new in my position. And I was so excited. I let my husband, David Scoville, know that we would be going to Peru and we would be visiting a rich, ancient culture of the Inca Empire. We would see beautiful cliffs on the Peruvian coastline. We would notice and observe shadowing mountain ranges. And we would be able to step away from the Newport heat in the dead of our summertime for just a couple of days to enjoy your temperate winter weather. And I was really looking forward to it. I was looking forward to receiving the hospitality at the Phoenix Club, bringing my own copy of the history of Rome, finding a quiet area like Admiral Mahan had done back in 1884, and finding peace in my own thoughts about Theodore Mommsen's The Effects of Navies on the Control of the Sea upon Great or Small Campaigns. David and I still hope to make that journey to visit you in person as soon as is possible to further strengthen our relationship and to be able to be introduced to and enjoy your great cities and meet and know the people of your great country. I think that it is remarkable that we have been able to maintain and grow our relationship over the last 100 years. I attribute this to the trailblazers, and I think we now call them innovators, but real trailblazers and connectors who trusted and cooperated with each other toward a common goal. And today, as we celebrate 100 years of American naval mission arrival to Peru, our country's ties go back, and they go back much further than even that 100 years in this special and important relationship. Dr. Laurie Ferrero explained that in 1781, as General George Washington was marching to Yorktown, the French fleet under Admiral de Grasse was making its way north to help surround Cornwallis and stopped in Cuba to collect 500,000 pesos. That might have been as much as 1.2 billion today. That's billion with a B, to help the colonies with expenses. And that coin was mostly struck in Peruvian silver. It was distributed to the American troops, and that gave them their first pay in almost 3 years. And when I think about the logistics of that, coin weighing in total about 6 tons, how it would have been brought ashore. The weight of that coin actually caused the storeroom floor to collapse into the cellar. In fact, our dollar sign came from the Spanish coin. Now, the liberation of countries in South America was very complex. The United States of America declared independence in 1776, but Peru proclaimed independence in 1821. And its antecedents came in the first declarations of independence of Nueva Granada in 1811, which actually closely mirrored the Declaration of Independence. Both of our wonderful countries have been woven together with similar historical milestones throughout these understanding of the missions of our navies. This understanding developed trust and common values these values have carried us through many changing environments. The common values that we hold are very powerful. And those values give weight and importance to our relationship. Relationships must be valued and nurtured. They are not built in a vacuum, but over many years. And relationships require constant care. Many have been involved keeping our ties close and our focus on relationship and activities. And this has been reinforced by a shared confidence and a shared philosophy. And that is what comes to my mind first out of this great celebration. Over the last 2 days, you have heard from many distinguished speakers, including our own David Conan from the United States Naval War College, a maritime historian, and a director of your Naval Museum of Peru, Rear Admiral, retired Francisco Yabar Acuna. A great foundation of maritime history has been discussed, which has paved the way for our discussions today. All relationships are built on the foundation of trust. If we don't have trust, we simply can't move forward. Trust entails being vulnerable and honest with each other. It also counts on the willingness to take risks that each side will continue to stand in that honesty and trust with one another. I find myself in good company today. Over my left shoulder is our 25th president of the United States Naval War College and your first director of Escuela Superior de Guerra, Naval Admiral William Pye. And over my right shoulder, legendary and courageous Peruvian naval officer, Admiral Miguel Grua Seminario, who was a model naval hero who helped to forge our common values. Recognized as the Peruvian of the millennium by popular vote in the year 2000, he offered his life in combat during the war in the Pacific. He was known as El Caballero de los Mares for his kind and chivalrous treatment of defeated enemies. He is very special, and his legacy is an important example of how we carry forward our relationship with honor, courage, and how we have approached developing trust in our relationship. This willingness to move forward between our institutions began with Admiral Mahan's work that recognized the strategic peacetime function of naval operations in the American hemisphere and around the world. This knowledge led our great presidents to see the value in the mission of collaboration in the global maritime arena. President Hoover followed President Roosevelt's "Our Navy, the Peacemaker" by placing highest priority on strategic partnerships with South American navies. Because we were vulnerable, but willing to make friends, great acts of collaboration ensued. And Admiral Pye found himself in Peru in 1929. The visit was not a symbolic gesture. Admiral Pye was a visionary thinker who brought a rich US Naval War College curriculum to foster open discussion about the future opportunities for collaboration with the United States Navy. I would also like to make a special note about the character of Admiral Pai and his family. Professor Conan brought this aspect to my attention, that Admiral Pai had two sons, both of whom served in the United States Navy around the time of World War II, one as a pilot and the other as a submarine officer. And unfortunately, both sons perished at sea in the line of duty. William Pai and his wife Anne took it upon themselves to raise their sons' 4 daughters. The Pai family story is truly a profound and widely unknown example of service to our great navies and to the United States of America. It is the best example I can think of humility, character, and compassion. Admiral Pai's vision to foster partnerships, such as those between the Peruvian and US Navy, enlightened our former Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Arleigh Burke. And this brought forward a program here at the United States Naval War College to foster global stability through strategic partnerships. One of my predecessors, Admiral Richard Colbert, reorganized the Naval Command Course here at the US Naval War College, keeping with the earlier vision of Admiral Stephen B. Luce that the US Naval War College should serve as an international forum for sea service practitioners to learn from past wars so as to avoid wars of the future. It was through these great minds that we recognized the need to trust one another so that we could grow to strengthen the foundations of peace and prevent the worst case scenario, war. Our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, develops and standardizes the accreditation of all United States war colleges, the Joint Professional Military Education programs underscore the essential role of military education very well. And that has laid the foundation for collaboration and integration built on trust as we move forward. Our joint leaders' vision is to innovatively leverage professional military education programs and curricula as a strategic asset to build trust and cognitive interoperability across the joint force and to integrate allies and key US international partners. His vision is the backbone of our War College institutions. Collaborate, build synergy, build deeper understanding, focus on key problems. Our War College programs must be dynamic and relevant, and we must continue to incorporate allied and partner students within our professional military education system to better prepare all of our officers for global operations to keep peace and prevent war. Strong relationships between our PME institutions are important to support allied and partner PME programs as we innovate and create opportunity for closer ties and deeper collaboration. My predecessors who have visited Peru have often spoken of the unflinching trust our colleges have been built on as we look at global maritime partnership programs. Admiral Gardner Howe, recently retired admiral, who was my predecessor 4 years ago, stated, "No one nation can muster all the resources necessary to secure their interests. All must rely on a network. And the key to making a network is trust." His words continue to ring true. We have been given a legacy, a strong network which has strengthened our ties. And those ties, when strong, promote confidence in each other. Confidence strengthened through shared experience and a shared philosophy. We must do everything we can to preserve that legacy and to continue to grow together. Confidence in each other relies on our understanding of each other's competence. Here at the US Naval War College, we kind of stack the deck with our world-class faculty hailing from across the joint services, academia, government agencies, and private industry. These exceptional men and women facilitate outreach, enhance interoperability, and enable us to foster a network of lifelong, enduring relationships. We have the ability, the knowledge, and the skill to achieve intellectual overmatch against any adversary who would seek to disrupt the existing global rules-based order. More than 50,000 students have graduated our Naval War College program since its first class of 9 students in 1885. And today, just about 300 of today's active duty admirals, generals, senior executive service leaders, and leaders worldwide are alumni. Each year, we graduate more than 500 students from our in-residence programs. And I'd like to highlight that each year, 100 or so of those graduates are international military students representing on average 60 countries. Through our distance learning programs, we support another 1,000 students who graduate each year. And for each of our students who are educated here, they depart us knowing the value of international partnerships and the critical importance of trust and shared perspectives. Since Arleigh Burke's creation of the program for international officers in 1956, the US Naval War College has had more than 4,760 alumni from 137 countries. Of those students, 1,354 became flag officers, 349 became heads of their Navy or Coast Guard, and approximately 33 are currently serving as head of their Navy or Coast Guard. So, said in a different way, 1 in 5 students at our United States Naval War College are international students. 1 in 3 graduates makes flag officers, and of those, more than 25% go on to be the head of their Navy or Coast Guard. Today, almost 20% of the world's navies or coast guards are headed by graduates of the United States Naval War College. It's an incredible record of global outreach to strengthen the global maritime partnerships. And within that group, 54 Peruvians have graduated from the Naval War College dating back to that first class of 1957. And those 54 have reinforced our work, our relationship, and our trust with the Peruvian Navy. It has also allowed your alumni to deliver on a broader network of past and future leaders, 4,760 strong. Peru's action of sending students to participate in the United States Naval War College programs and our commitment to sending faculty members to participate in conferences and exercises with you are tangible measures of our shared values. Shared values create trust and link people and organizations together. It's an ethical compass. The vision of our two institutions are so very similar. We have been updating our documents, and today you're likely to hear us say, we inform today's decision makers and educate tomorrow's leaders. We equip decision makers with the experience and intellectual capacity to anticipate and prepare strategically for the future, strengthening the foundations of peace and creating a decisive warfighting advantage, thus protecting our national interests around the globe. And that is so consistent with our founder, Rear Admiral Luce, who stated appropriately that this is a place of original research on all questions relating to war and the statesmanship connected with war or the prevention of war. Our job as educators is to deliver excellence in education, research, and outreach. In today's dynamic security environment, numerical and technological superiority are no longer enough. We all need to approach the business of our naval service as one of outthinking our adversaries. At our naval war colleges, we need to expand the intellectual capacity of naval joint interagency and international leaders and warriors to achieve that cognitive advantage. Our commitment to each other is further defined in our chairman's policy document titled Developing Today's Joint Officers for Tomorrow's Ways of War. He tells us that we must provide graduates the initial knowledge and skills to prepare them for service as warfighting joint leaders, senior staff officers, and strategists. They must be able to discern the military dimensions of a challenge affecting national interests. They must be able to frame issues at the policy level and recommend viable military options within overarching frameworks of globally integrated operations. This enables our members to anticipate and lead rapid adaptation and innovation during a dynamic period of acceleration in the rate of change in warfare under conditions of great power competition and disruptive technology. All graduates should possess these critical and creative thinking skills: emotional intelligence, effective written and verbal and communication skills to support the development of strategies and complex operations. Today, we face different risks. And right now, we face an invisible enemy, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has pushed each one of us outside of our comfort zones. It has been disruptive, a real disruptive change to the way that we normally do business. Business has taken on a new normal due to technology, adaptability, and innovative thinking. Just this conference is a demonstration of that. I'm inspired by Peru's agility, teamwork, and creativity to bring this conference to all of us to remark on our 100-year milestone. And I know that we will emerge from this crisis stronger, more resilient, and more flexible in how we lead and work together. I was sorry to see this year that we would not be able to host a Peruvian officer due to the COVID pandemic. I know that in Peru, military members are first responders in cases like this COVID pandemic and in natural disasters. It is part of your naval mission to conduct civic actions and social support in coordination with public entities. But I do hope that next year we will be able to host again one of your terrific officers. Your officers who attend next year will bring with them a wealth of knowledge that they have gained working closely in a civil military capacity on disaster response. And they would be able to share that knowledge with us. We would learn from their experience, and this would help the connection between our two countries through the sharing of those experiences and the deep learning that has occurred throughout this pandemic. I feel that one of the strongest traits that any naval officer can possess is the ability to recognize their personal strengths and then offer those strengths to the organization for the overall benefit of their community. And that's challenging for anyone to do because it involves taking a risk to offer the thing that you're really good at, which may be in addition to all of the myriad responsibilities that you undertake on a daily basis. When you offer your true gifts, you become vulnerable, and it requires trust from colleagues. Although when it's done with the greater good in mind, that openness provides an unfiltered look at how we can all be better. In 1919, when the government of President Augusto Leguía decided Europe was not affording the model of modernity and material and social progress, he undertook a large risk and chose to establish a stronger bond with an up and coming naval power, that of the young United States. He took that chance and made that first big step toward the United States 100 years ago. And we have been growing closer together with continued cooperation ever since. Cooperation is the ability to work together at the same time. Over the last 100 years, we have both really invested in becoming better and stronger together. Cooperation reduces competition, and it allows the aperture of our collective lenses to be opened wider to see a larger and more productive relationship and outcomes. It allows us to understand each other and synergize our efforts. And no one can be more thought of as an example of that than our own late Dr. William Bundy. And I was just so touched by the expression of sorrow, which I was able to pass to Mrs. Bundy. And thank you for your sympathies that were sent on to our Naval War College when you learned of his passing. We called him Doc Bundy, and he emulated and helped build our vision and mission at the United States Naval War College. Now, he was a connector of people, a connector of capabilities, and a connector of ideas. He was always willing to listen and to share his own experiences. He always saw the best in people. And he always had a way of making everyone around him feel important and supported. His positive approach helped others see opportunities instead of obstacles. And he never saw limitations in people. He saw their strengths, the gifts that they had to give, and the potential outcomes that would yield. On my work computer screen, I have the note card that we received at his funeral service. And I have a note written to myself of something that we often heard Doc Bundy say. He never said, yes, but. Sí, pero. He always said, yes, and. Sí, y. And that reminds me that every new idea shouldn't be thought of as less than itself, but it should be thought of as more than itself for what it brings to others. Doc would always accept first what a person had to say and then expand on their line of thinking. He was a special relationship facilitator between the US Naval War College and the Peruvian Navy. Referencing in your 2016 Peru International Symposium on Security and Defense with his article, The Importance of Submarines, New Threats, New Roles, Doc was a huge innovator and promoter of diesel electric submarine initiative. And his influence could be seen through the multiple Pacific and Atlantic exercises we conduct today. The initiative also brings real world ASW experience and readiness to the US Navy. Doc Bundy authored a wonderful trip report after his trip to Lima last year for the 5th International Symposium on Security and Defense. He mentioned how our participation continues a 200-year-old relationship with the Marina del Guerra del Peru, stating the symposium was a valuable venue in gaining a better understanding of the global Navy capabilities, technology adoption, and engagements to build sea power. Doc Bundy will certainly be missed, not only for his diesel electric submarine initiative, but for his ability to connect us, one to the other. Our relationship is stronger because of him. We have learned so much from him about how to do the business of connecting. And because of that, he has made each of our navies better. We have entered an era of great power competition. Admiral McRaven would say, you can't surge trust. The last 100 years have been a great success, and our navies have maintained the relationship, even when the political relationship was difficult. I know the United States and the US Naval War College will be a stable and reliable partner for the next 100 years too. We'll continue to cooperate. We'll continue to work together to strengthen our nation's navies. And recently, there have been multiple touch points between the US Naval War College and the Peruvian Navy. You've heard recently, just before this presentation, from former US 4th Fleet Commander Admiral Buck. He had many involvements and much involvement with the UNITAS exercise. But we also, at the Naval War College, have played a part in this unity exercise as well. In 2016, our College of Maritime Operational Warfare from the United States Naval War College sent a team to Lima to provide a subject matter expert exchange for Unitas. This contribution continues one of our former CNO, Admiral Arleigh Burke's vision to build a foundation committed to this region and a strong relationship with an important partner nation and their military. As the United States Fourth Fleet, Peru, and other allies plan for Unitas this November, they carry with them the responsibility to continue security cooperation and improvement of our coalition operations. There is a tremendous interoperability experience and an opportunity for the participating navies of the Americas. Panamax is another of those great Navy exercises. In 2016 also, our College of Maritime Operational Warfare sent representatives to Lima for 2 weeks to help Admiral Alberto Acala, our SIFMIC commander, and his international staff to plan and execute the exercise. Today, our College of Maritime Operational Warfare continues to support this effort. We know that unfortunately Panamax has been postponed due to COVID, but they will support a subject matter exchange and crisis action planning later in the year. Additionally, our Cyber and Innovation Policy Institute and Joint Maritime Operations Groups recently reviewed Peru's educational hex board game. Their analysts provided valuable feedback for a skeletal potential alternate game format. I hope that we will continue to collaborate together to develop this game and have the opportunity to play it at a future SIFMIC course. I'm also so sorry to report that our 24th International Sea Power Symposium was postponed this year. It would have taken place next month in September. But I am excited and encouraged that it has been rescheduled for September of the following year. That biannual event hosts heads of Navy, and Peru has been represented in 22 of the 23 past symposiums. It's such an outstanding demonstration of engagement at the senior naval leader level to discuss common maritime challenges and opportunities to enhance international maritime security cooperation. The International Sea Power Symposium is unique because it is the only forum in the world that brings together the heads of so many navies and at the same time enhances maritime security and collaborative operations. Admiral Gonzalo Rios was with us 2 years ago, and we look forward to hosting Admiral Fernando Cerdan next year. Rear Admiral Jorge Andaluz, before he was your Peruvian Naval War College director, visited the U.S. Naval War College back in 2012 and 13 while stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. At that time, he helped set up an elective study case of Peru versus Shining Path. And that case study, I'm happy to report, is still presented every year by our Peruvian student, last year by Captain Americo Amico. He also last year was nominated by his fellow colleagues to be the president of the Naval Command College class. He served with distinction and honor, and he was one of our last students that I saw in our campus. And he presented the class yearbook to me, and I will always cherish that book and the inscription that he left me within its pages. We sponsor a robust CNO fellowship program. Admiral Barrera, the former commander of the Colombia Navy from 2006 to 2010, and a 40-year veteran of the Colombia Navy, joined our team in 2011, and he's still with us today and at this great event today. He spends his time mentoring students, senior leaders. He teaches electives, and he is fully integrated in our education and outreach. Admiral Barrera has stated that Peru and Colombia have had terrorism and narco trafficking as common threats to their existence. Therefore, the military, and particularly the navies, have been operating closely together for a long time. As a result, Colombia and Peru have a continuous interchange that has increased with the time. Trust, cooperation, and shared values. Interoperability and integration are some of the results of fighting a common enemy. Lifetime relationships are developed as a result of those common experiences. We are so grateful to have Admiral Barrera, his experience, insight, and close working ties, his advice to our faculty, his perspective through a wide ethical and scholarship lens. And he could not have encapsulated it more accurately, that lifetime friendships are the result of trust, common values, and cooperation. I would like to conclude my remarks today by saying that we have come a long way over 100 years. We have built a relationship based on trust, fortified that trust with our shared values and cooperation. Not an easy task to do, not always easy, but we did it. And we are all here today to celebrate, remember, and forecast what the next 100 years could look like. As we've seen over the last year, we could face obstacles we cannot yet envision. We are in times of increasing uncertainty, and the pace of change is accelerating. During times such as these, we need to be able to turn to those we trust and who have been there with us along the way. Admiral Miguel Grau Seminario, Admiral Mahan, President Leguia, Admiral Pai, and Dr. William Bundy have blazed the path for us. It is now our job to pick up the gauntlet and move forward together. And with that, we must train our next generation to be able to pick up from where we leave off, for them to commit to and work toward making this relationship stronger. Stronger for the United States, stronger for Peru, and stronger for this hemisphere, and stronger for this world. Our children rely on our actions and the relationships we leave them once we are gone. Again, congratulations on this successful milestone of 100 years. And I look forward to what we will build in the next 100 years. Like Peru, the United States of America is a maritime nation. Our commerce, our prosperity, and our security begin with and rest with the security, health, and vibrancy on and off the seas. The sea has been a lifeline for our nations. We know that the sea is also inhospitable. As mariners on the sea, we understand the sea in a special way, and we understand these truths. The sea is a global commons. We as mariners have the responsibility of experiencing and seeing the sea in a way that others cannot. Our common perspective, our trust, our commitment to safeguarding our nations, our coastlines, our commerce, our prosperity, and our security is a legacy of these foundations that have endured 100 years. It is the way we see the sea and our commitment to our prosperity and our security, which we derive from understanding the ocean in this way and understanding how we must operate as navies on this ocean. Our recognition today of 100 years past will be yet another stepping stone in the legacy that will be told 100 years from now. That concludes my remarks, and I would like to invite questions if there are any.
Thank you, Admiral Chatfield. I would like to mention or highlight something that you mentioned, that the shared value builds trust. And we believe that these values that are respect to our democratic institution within our freedom, and especially we that wear the sea uniform, and the awareness that the freedom of ocean is the main pillar for the freedom of our nations. And as you said, the next 100 years we will continue to strengthen the cooperation bonds and share these values. Thank you so much for your presentations. I have a question from Captain Enrique Tapia. That's from the Superior Academy. The question is, in the pandemic context, the education, Navy education is restricted. Do you think is that we can see opportunities for a distance education regarding defense, and why?
Well, I'd like to thank Captain Tapia for that question, because it really gets at the essence of the hard work that we must accomplish in education. Now, usually when technology comes to a person or to an institution, people look at the technology as a way to do work more efficiently. And so we see today that we are meeting in a virtual environment, and yet we are preserving some of the same things that we would have if we were in person. So we have our backdrop, we've seen slides go on our presentations, we've seen questions, we have a great moderator today, and thank you so much. And we're using the technology to do something that we're familiar with from our past. Now, the real promise of technology is to take the technology and exploit the technology for all the things that we weren't able to do in the past. And so as I think about naval education, I think about how we're approaching delivery of our current curriculum. And we have a way to do that via distance platforms. We have a way to do that via our in-residence virtual course and our distance learning virtual courses. But there are many opportunities for us once we begin to look at how we can use these technologies to think about the curriculum delivery in a different way. And I'll give an example of our maritime operations planning course that we have. Normally, we invite our planners and they arrive and they go straight into the classroom. And it's an experiential time of learning in teams. But what we've learned from this pandemic is that the pandemic may prevent us from planning together. And it caused us to think about the sequencing of how we deliver the curriculum. Our Navy requires that our students, when they travel to Newport, Rhode Island, enter into a restriction of movement until we're certain that they haven't been exposed to COVID-19 along the way. While they're in the restriction of movement, they have a tablet, and the tablet has materials preloaded. And so we were able to extract the materials for asynchronous learning and condense the period of experiential learning. And then we were able to rewire our classrooms to prevent any congregations of students in numbers greater than 10. So even if our precautions failed, a single case of COVID-19 would not infect the entire group of 40, but we would have a much lower risk of exposure or transmission. We looked at everything from how to prevent people from touching the same computer, touching the same marker pen, or touching any other common item like a doorknob. We looked at the flow into and out of the buildings. So in examining not just the material for its relevancy, but examining the different choices we had to organize and deliver the material, we were able to build a course that had nearly identical outcomes as we would have if we had done it in the previous way. Now, that experience has allowed us to look at all the courses that we offer for fleet engagement. How many of those courses could be started remotely, asynchronously, in advance? There is a type of education called low residency, where the student does more things asynchronously on their own time, and then come together in fewer, richer sessions where there is more dialogue and more opportunity for students to learn from each other, having prepared in advance. So I hope that this answers Captain Tapia's question about where are we, how are we meeting the challenge of delivering our education in the COVID environment. I feel that we are just touching the surface of the depths that we could go if we look at the technology in what it allows us to do for the future, not how it compensates for the way we did things in the past.
Thank you so much for your answer. We have one question from U.S. Commander from the work done from the Naval Academy. I have learned a lot during my stage at the War College. Is there any plan to make stages with the Naval Work Academy in Peru?
Well, I wonder if you could give me a little bit more about that question. So I'm wondering if you're asking, is there to be a faculty exchange, or if there's to be a course delivered online? I'm just not sure.
Well, it means that there are several problems for several grades. There is a high-level program for captains. There is another that is equivalent to the Naval War College, and there is another for ship captains that is equivalent to the Naval Staff College.
Yes, so thank you very much for that question. We are experimenting first with developing courses that will have shorter timelines. And we already have a concentration in our in-residence program that leads to a certificate. Ahead of us is the Naval Postgraduate School, which has organized a master's degree around stackable certificates. This would allow for working naval officers to organize their master's level education in short bursts. And it's really very fitting to a naval career to think about something that could be done in 1 month or 3 months instead of something that requires the investment of a full year, even though a longer program gives officers time to think and reflect and grow in their ability to frame problems and work collaboratively to develop solutions. Some officers simply will never have that time in their career. So organizing a program around shorter certificates that could be stacked or bundled to build a master's degree, I feel is very innovative and could be something that, if approved, could be very useful for our Naval War College and potentially other war colleges. I hope that answers your question.
Así es. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. We have another question from Captain Carlos Morales from Mexico Army, a student from the War College, regarding the new transnational risk and the geopolitical context. What is your perspective for American continent in order to create an alliance that will allow a better cooperation between US and Latin American countries and transfer of intelligence, skills, and training?
Oh, that's a very good question, and thank you to Captain Morales. I am quite taken by the question because what I know about relationships and trust is that we can sometimes neglect the first start of understanding the shared values and building shared values into small goals that are stepping stones to larger ones. And so as I think about our way forward, and I can really only comment on our military relationships, but I know that from our military relationships, always having those shared values that we can rely upon, and having invested time through networks and placing attention on that relationship, there is the ability to reach out and have a discussion which is frank and open and honest, and which can pave the way for a different, more robust institutional dialogue. And so often I've heard our international military officers and visitors to the college who are alumni talk about the network of connections that they have and the ability that they have had to clarify some particular aspect of naval relationship before there was a misunderstanding. And so for that purpose, I truly believe that opportunities such as we have at the United States Naval War College, where we have this intersection of professionals in the military members in the profession of arms, civilians who make up membership in our interagency institutions, and also our joint services. This intersection allows us to build a network where ideas for something, much like in education, the technology, which gives us the promise of something better, if we look forward, not backward, that we would have that same foundation through any series of institutions, whether they be military institutions, political institutions, intergovernmental institutions, and the like. I hope that answers your question.
Así es, almirante.
Thank you so much. We have the last question from Captain Victor Bamonde from the staff course. In the current context, what are the aspects that the War College should empower or improve in educating officers?
Well, thank you for that question. So one of the things that we have traditionally looked at in higher education is how are we doing in delivery of the material? And across our accrediting agencies, there is a strong sense that outcomes should be measured in a different way. And so we have a great opportunity right now to look at our War College programs instead of from a performance-based metric system to an output-based metrics system where we take into account adult learning styles, experiential learning, and other means of demonstrating competency in the material so that we are certain that students have fully understood portions of the curriculum and can use those portions to build and understand more complexity as they progress. And so I feel like for our war colleges, we have to be aware of those trends in higher education and understand what we're learning about adult learners today, particularly adult learners who have grown up with a lot of technology support, who like to receive information in different ways, who process information in different ways conceptually, and who express themselves in different ways. So this will be the challenge for us as we move forward to remain on the cutting edge of academic excellence, and then to be able to invest in our faculty development and our infrastructure to be able to support that kind of learning.
Thank you very much, Admiral Chatfield, for being today, for your answers. And we hope that when the conditions will allow you, you can visit to our country. You are very welcome.
Thank you. You've been very gracious and a wonderful experience for me today.
The closing words in charge of Vice Admiral Manuel Vasconez More, Chief of the Staff of the Navy. Mr. Vice Admiral Shanbach, Superintendent of Annapolis Academy of the United States of America. Vice Admiral Luis Polar Figari, General Director of Education of Peruvian Navy. Rear Admiral Shoshana Hetfield, Head of the U.S. Naval War Academy. Rear Admiral Echevarria, Rear Admiral Gerardo Indacochea Arana, Director of Peruvian Naval War College, admirals, officers, and different attaches from the United States Embassy, officials and ex-students of the Peruvian Naval War College, officers of the Annapolis Academy of the United States of America, officers of the different armies of Peru and United States that are here in presence and also virtually, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of General Commander, I would like to thank all the persons that have been attending this binational forum, especially to our speakers, Vice Admiral Schambach, Superintendent of the U.S. Navy Academy, and Rear Admiral Shoshana Sheffield, President of the U.S. Naval War College. Rear Admiral Francisco Yavar, Director of the Naval Museum, Dr. David Cohen, Director of the Research Center of Maritime History of the U.S. Naval War College, and Captain Michel Lagarde, the author of the book American Mission, Navy American Mission in Peru. Definitely, your comments, your remarks related with the past, with the present, and with the future has shown what is to continue the path that were marked by the ones that preceded, strengthening the links between our armies, a special condition to face the future challenges and to defend our shared values. There is no doubt that the academic scope has been an integrated factor between our institutions. Both the Peruvian Naval Academy and the Peruvian Naval War College are great examples of them, and it's there where our future leaders had took and take conscious very deeply of the importance that has been this cooperation and what we should do to keep this cooperation in the near future. That is why I would like to congratulate the initiative of the General Education Director and the Peruvian Naval War College to make possible this forum, and especially greetings to the U.S. Naval War College and the U.S. Naval Academy for his valuable cooperation. I hope this is pleased to all the persons that have been follow this forum, and this forum left in your imaginary what is the origin of the modern Peruvian naval. So I declare as the opening the 100 years of the arrival of the U.S. mission to Peru.
Se retira.
Vice Admiral Manuel Vascones Morey, Chief of the Staff of the Navy, leaves the room, accompanied by the Vice Admiral Luis Polar Figari, General Director of Education of the Peruvian Navy.